All right, we are going to get back into doing our futures reviews Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And yeah, it started off a really good options morning. Only had one loss. That loss was pretty unnecessary. And then very, very green. Futures wasn't so much, though. You know, uh, the cursed second hour of trading, man. And I kind of called it. I had a kind of bad feeling because whenever we move a lot in the first hour, second hour tends to oscillate. And I haven't gone through my notes yet, my journal, but I may stop trading the second hour if uh, ES and NQ move a certain amount within the first hour. I don't have enough data yet or knowledgeable enough yet to make that decision. But as you guys know, compression is what makes me lose money. And that's pretty much what we got. So I'm going to hop into my journal real quick and we'll just review the futures trades we took. I believe I took 7 today. 6 maybe? I think I took 6. I don't know. But anyways, so coming into voice, I was leaning bullish. However, ES had this gap here, which I am bearish for gaps to fill. If it's a futures gap, I'm bearish for it to fill. This isn't going to be the perfect gap or anything. I'm just going to kind of do a rough outline. And that's pretty much the gap right there. Yeah. So we had a gap on ES, and those typically fill. Okay, so I was bearish for that reason, but at the moment, I mean, we invalidated most of the bounce, looked pretty bullish, looked okay. And yeah, but anyways, I hop into voice and we start reversing. Like, okay, well, if we get bullish consolidation, I would love to take longs up to this high. If we kind of pull back a little bit and put in an inverse head and shoulders. However, that wasn't the case, and we dumped. I'm like, okay, it could still be an inverse head and shoulders, but if it dumps a lot more, I'm going to be triggered into shorts. And I was on this candle. So I was triggered into shorts. Invalidated majority of the move, and that's just kind of how it is. And I was bearish for at least low a day, but my PT was really demand. And I believe my stop loss was, I want to say it was roughly here-ish. No, my stop loss was roughly up here. I'm triggered in. It's just it didn't really the concern was we got a volume spike on this candle indicating possible reversal. I wasn't a huge fan of the buying wick, but the buying wick is what allowed me to get the entry that I got. So that was cool. But at the bare minimum, I was looking for low of day. We were green for a little bit, but it didn't last very long. And then we flipped and we ended up missing low of day. And by the time this candle closed, I hopped out of the trade early for a still a big loss, minus 500 per account. But hopped out of the trade early because for the same reason that triggered me in, it triggered me out. So I'm like, okay, well, we made lower highs here on ES. So I'm able to start being able to draw a pennant. Problem is how long is this going to compress for? And which way is it going to break when it's done compressing? That's the grand question right there. So if I said if it goes up a little bit more, I'm going to be triggered into longs. And if you guys aren't willing to take losses in a row, sit it out. Wait for compression to break out. I didn't though. I really liked this level on NQ. I was pretty bullish for this level. But here's the problem. If it comes up to here, I'm going to enter long for this level. If I stop out and it goes down, I'm going to have to enter short again, which means I can take 2 or 3 more losses in a row, which is the risk. Is that likely? Usually no. But it was for me. So I end up filling on this candle. Sorry, I filled on this candle. And this was the trade. Started out green, started out okay. NQ was strong. And I said, if you want to take profits here, you can. We are at the only resistance before my PT. So I was anticipating a break to the upside, given the momentum, the nice kind of increasing green volume on NQ. And NQ was stronger than ES, and ES was invalidating most of the drop. So I was bullish on ES to at least get to here. So this trade was very freaking likely to hit PT, very likely. But I did say this is the only resistance. So if you want to take profits, you can. And boom, trade got wiped out. So it did get a bearish sell side liquidity sweep. I was very tempted to sell at break even, but it started bouncing. I'm like, I'm just going to let the trade play out. And then boom, it did it again. And then it started bouncing again. I'm like, at this point, I was very concerned that I was going to get triggered into shorts because if I stop out of this trade and it goes down more, I'm willing to take shorts one more time. I was pretty concerned that I was going to get into shorts and I'm going to have to stop out. So that was kind of my big concern. And it did end up happening. I'm like, well, so I'm 0-2 right out of the start. And I end up hopping in on this candle. This trade was a big error for me, though. I actually filled here. And at this point, I'm just looking for low of day. You know, even double fake prophecy is enough. Here's my stop loss. Okay, my stop loss is roughly here. It's kind of a smaller trade. I made an error on this trade, though, which kind of saved me a bit. It kind of saved me a bit. I ended up taking an unnecessary loss that I didn't even call out. So the loss that this saved me, I ended up taking it anyways, just on a different trade. But so this was supposed to stop me out, except my stop loss was a sell order. So I accidentally doubled down on this right here, and then I immediately market sold it at break even here. So I lucked out there. It didn't actually lose me money. But I did end up taking a short trade. I think it was here on ES, and I did end up stopping out of it there. That one I didn't really call it because flipped green right away, wasn't any point. So even though that was a red trade and it didn't affect my P&L, I ended up taking a different red trade that wasn't called out. So my end P&L is pretty much what it would have been if that mistake didn't happen. So I'm 0-3 to start. It's not looking too great. It really isn't looking too great. We didn't even make it to the bottom trend line. And, you know, I'm in a weird position because I'm bearish for ES low of day. ES missed low of day, and I'm bearish for the gap fill, but at the same time, and this is a bear pennant, but at the same time, we have a falling wedge on ES. So we had so much conflicting analysis. And, you know, I'm speeding through it pretty quickly, but sitting through this for an hour really hurts the psychology over the long run. And, yeah, it just sucks to go through. So I had a lot of conflicting analysis. I had that falling wedge there, so I was leaning kind of bullish. Well, NQ started breaking to the upside, which means I'm going to try to get into NQ long. So I tried filling longs on this candle, and my order didn't fill. PT was here. My order didn't fill, though. That really frustrated me. So my psychology was already kind of deteriorated because I just sat through an hour of horrendous, shitty price action that I cannot make money off of. And now it's round 2 of the upside break, and this is a bit more likely because it, you know, if it were bearish, it would have at least tested the bottom trend line. It didn't even get close to it, so I'm thinking we're going to go for a short squeeze. But this really tested my psychology here, but what would hurt your psychology? Entering this trade at a higher average and stopping out for a little bit more of a loss because you lose either way, or being greedy, not moving my limit order up, and missing out on this trade completely. So I actually filled a market order up here. It did not have a good average once again, but it is what it is. In turn, my stop loss was right here. I did move my stop loss up a little bit. It was really annoying. But even at the point I filled at, I was still triggered in. Was still an above 1-to-1 risk to award. Was still a perfectly fine trade to take. It just sucks that sometimes you're not going to get filled on things. It happens on options quite a bit for me. And it happens on futures as well. If the trade's still valid, the risk to award's still good, you still hop in. So I hopped in. Was it ended up being a good decision because it didn't come back down to where my order was. Tried doing another bearish liquidity sweep, but I really liked NQ's strength, and boom, we just got our first win. So made back some of the loss, not much though. That win was less than the average loss today, which is rare. So that sucked. But you know, ES is weaker than NQ, and on top of that, you know, I'm bearish for ES to fill the gap, and on top of all that, NQ sweeping sell side liquidity. So we get this candle on ES, and I fill shorts on this candle. Pretty aggressive with this short trade. It is a pretty aggressive short trade, I will say that. But you know what? I'm kind of just triggered in. You know, ES has been weaker than NQ. NQ went up a lot. ES didn't. So I kind of had to get in ES, but I had a feeling NQ was going to flip weak because it hit such strong liquidity there. You can see a hard liquidity rejection. So we got the volume spike indicating reversal. We had a solid pivot, a confirmed bearish liquidity sweep. ES has invalidated a majority of this bounce, and ES is a very solid pivot below. Even though I didn't really feel like getting into this trade because I literally just exited. Finally, after an hour of hard work and losing three trades in a row, I'm usually not super willing to just hop right back into another trade because I worked so hard to finally get my first green trade of the day, and I could give it all back right now. But when I weighed the probability analysis, I'm triggered in by so many different things. So I filled here. And technically the PT is at low of day, but I'm doing some analysis and I'm like, well, okay. By the time ES is at low of day, NQ is going to be somewhere down here. I'm going to be bearish for NQ to at least get to one of these pivots. And I'm really bearish for NQ to get to low of day eventually. So I don't want to put a hard PT here at ES. And also, this isn't a very big win. This is smaller than my average loss today. So stop loss is hard. I'm going to write it out and see what happens. Well, NQ ended up flipping weaker. So it would have been a better trade if I took NQ, but it is what it is. And ES ended up getting down here. I didn't fill yet. I'm like, okay, that's a reversal candle. So that was fairly concerning. And yeah, so we were kind of bouncing. And oh crap, ES has flipped strong. So what I did, I put my limit order one tick below low of day. But then I removed it after we invalidated this bounce. And I sold it here at the close of this candle. Got a volume spike, buying wick, indicated reversal. I'm out. So didn't have a hard PT there, and that was a big win. That was $750 per account, just some too many positions. So that was a big win. And by that point, I was down about $1,500 per account on the day. And now I was only down about 180. My average trade's been about 500. So that's a hell of a comeback. I'm a fraction of one trade away from being green. Now, what I'm hoping for is I want this gap to fill, and I want NQ new low of day. I'm hoping that NQ gets a bounce and invalidates the bounce so I can hop in. Well, it's kind of doing that right now, so I was concerned I was going to miss it. But did end up getting the bounce, and NQ was bouncing hard, and so was ES. But you can see right here, it looked like they were pretty even on strength. The concern was NQ had a perfect double top right here, which really hurt my willingness to enter. Well, look how much stronger NQ is than ES. So I end up popping back into ES here. Stop loss here. And I'm just kind of waiting for a... this is bearish consolidation on the NASDAQ. I'm looking for NQ to break to the downside. But of course, ES flips freaking strong again right after I get in this trade. It's almost like magic. So I was really freaking frustrating. NQ got that huge red candle. ES didn't move. It moved just far enough to get me into the trade because by the time I entered and validated the whole thing, and then once I'm in, NQ gets a huge red candle and ES does not. So ES flips very strong. This was so annoying, guys. So annoying. It was terribly annoying. Because NQ is dumping, and ES is not. So I'm stuck in this crappy trade. Looked terrible, and I actually predicted that I was going to rocket up to my stop loss. Looking back, I could have sold right here, but it's whatever. So I end up taking one more loss there, which really sucked. Really sucked. And keep in mind, I'm pretty much at my time limit. I'm pretty much at my trade limit. And we end up going back down one more time. And I actually filled short. Sorry. Filled short on this candle. NQ was weaker, had a bounce, and validated a majority of the bounce. I took it. I'm going for demand. With how much weaker NQ is than ES, I took it. Here's stop loss. And took it down to demand. Of course, it did end up continuing down. I could have held it, but you know what? I managed to end the day green after starting 0-2 with bad price action. It really sucks that I couldn't get good price action during the second hour. Looking back on all the trades, I don't have any issues with any of the trades. I don't have any issues with my stop losses. The only stop loss to get perfectly swept then go back down is this one, which just sucks. I mean, it wasn't very likely to happen. You know, ES had lower lows, perfect triple top, and it left it there. So it was a good stop loss location regardless. Just unfortunate. We did end up continuing down, and I watched it. I filled the gap, but by that time I'm pretty out of trades. You know, I kind of took my max trade count, and we hit 10:30, which is my 2 hour mark, which means I am done. So I only caught pretty much a fraction of this move, but you know that as long as I'm not compressing, I can make money, no problem. So I was fairly happy that I was able to make back the loss at least, and finish the day on a fairly good note, even though I took up this unnecessary loss. If this unnecessary loss didn't happen, would have been a much greener day. But regardless, the hypotheses were decent. The TA was good. It's just, when price action's compressing, I lose money every single time. However, I am profitable because this happens way less than 50% of the time that I trade. So I'd say only about 20% of the time I trade on average. Obviously, the last few weeks have been rougher during the second hour, but usually that doesn't really happen. So yeah, the odds remain in my favor. But with that being said, does anyone have any questions on any of today's analysis or trades? That's pretty much it. Pretty quick. Do you ever enter above the 50%? Yeah. I mean, if it's a continuation trade, totally. All continuation trades are obviously above the 50%. Sometimes I will. So as you guys know, if a majority of a move invalidates, I like to enter because it tends to chase liquidity. Here's like an example. Let's say price action does this and then does something like this. Let's say it does this. It's kind of chopping down. Looks like it wants to bounce. And then does something like this. Well, technically, as far as my liquidity analysis, I wouldn't be confirmed it bullish to this high. Let me change my color. I wouldn't be confirmed bullish to this high until we get above just more than half the move, so somewhere right around up here. However, even though we're under that, we have a cup and handle, and based on this formation, I'm okay taking a long early down here and possibly putting my PT all the way up here. I'm not sure. I got to see how it goes. But what I am predicting at the bare minimum is that this cup and handle is going to produce a move that's going to go over the 50%. Depending on where we go from there, I could sell to 61.8, the 78.6, but I'd like to think, okay, well, I'd be entering long if it got up to here. Well, this setup looks like it's going to catalyze price action to get to there. So why wouldn't I enter now? Sure, it has a little bit lower probability of playing out, but the risk reward's way better. So this is a situation where I would enter before it gets to 50% because the given setup gives me solid anticipation that it's going to get there anyways. And if I know I'm going to enter long up here, and I know it's probably going to get there, I have a rarer opportunity to enter a much bigger risk reward trade, if that makes sense. But any other questions? Nope, everyone's good. Any answers the sizing question? I'm not. Oh, you're still taking. Swag. I'm trading evals right now, so I'm normal size. Tomorrow, I'm actually gonna switch to PAs because I think that I don't want to buy more evaluations because I think they're probably gonna do a Black Friday sale. So tomorrow, I'm gonna be sized half. But when I'm trading evaluations, I'm sized normally. But yeah, when I'm trading PAs, it's half size for a while. Trades have been bigger lately, and because I on average group trade no less than 5 accounts, so PAs are typically group trade 10 at a time. I have no need to be trading my full size. 5 micros on NQ, 1 on ES is plenty. Do you target liquidity based on time of day? I target liquidity based on where it's at on the chart, not as far as time of day is concerned. No, I don't care too much about the time of day. But all right, sweet. Well, thank you guys for attending. We have another day tomorrow. We're doing another giveaway as well. And Akagi, I don't know if you're new, but good seeing you here, dude. You looks like you took a nice trade there in chat. And yeah. So we'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning. This is obviously recorded. This will go up on the YouTube. Gonna get the YouTube active again. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your night. Ping me if you guys need anything. And hopefully it's another bright green day, knock on wood.